Welcome to the About Sex podcast. I'm Josh, and with me, as always, is Angela Skirtu. Who are you, Angela?
I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and an ASEX certified sex therapist. And today our guest is Richard, and he is a man he's a heterosexual man who suffers from advanced ED due to diabetic neuropathy. Hi, Richard.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Cool.
Thanks for being here.
Well, so why don't you tell us a little bit about how things progressed in terms of the diabetic neuropathy?
Well, I was diagnosed with diabetes back in 2001. Actually, it was on a famous day. I was diagnosed with diabetes on September 11th, 2001.
Oh,
Interesting.
I didn't pay any attention to what was going on in the rest of the world because I was in the hospital almost dying.
oh no.
But I never worried about the diabetes because, at the time when I was diagnosed, I was out of control and I was 300 pounds. So and the doctors told me I was going to be an invalid for the rest of my life. So I closed down my law practice and hit the gym, lost 100 pounds. And by December...
That's a lot of work.
That is a lot. How long did it take you to do that?
It took me from September to December. And on my...
Wait, in the same
in the
year?
in the same year.
3 months?
That's a lot of
That's a
weight
lot
to
of weight
lose.
to lose in 3 months. How in
Yeah.
the world did you
I was in the gym 4 hours a day.
Wow.
Wow.
Running, bicycling. On my birthday in December, my wife and I hiked the Grand Canyon.
Awesome.
So, and I was not on insulin. I was not on any medication. So I've always had my diabetes under control. But after a while, I noticed that even though my blood sugars were okay and everything was under okay, I noticed tingling in my feet, and it didn't bother me so much until in
Oh, we gotta pause. Fun.
anyway in 2005 I got divorced, and then I had no problems with neuropathy really up through my divorce, and I didn't have ED.
Okay.
I was just fine, and it was a very hard divorce, and I wasn't sexually active from my divorce until I got married again in 2008, and to my surprise and to my wife's surprise, on our wedding night, nothing happened. Yeah,
Okay.
That was your first time having an ED?
That was my first time having an ED experience, and it got progressive. That was the first time I experienced it. But in 2011, I was training for a marathon, and I stepped on a piece of glass,
Oh no.
and it went into my big toe, and I ended up getting it turned. I went to the emergency room, and they sent me home. And they came back the next day. It was gangrenous, so
wow.
I had surgery on my toe, and when as I was recovering, I had the feeling of my legs and feet felt as though I had stockings on all the time.
Yeah.
And I went to a neurologist about it, and he called it stocking and glove aphasia. And
Or it just feels kind of constricted?
constricted. Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
But I was still very mobile. But over time, it moved up my legs, and finally it moved up past my waist.
Okay.
And when it moved up past my waist, I was completely ED. Just
Completely.
no,
So it was kind of back and forth before then.
yeah.
But then this
But then
time
after
you
the
couldn't do
stockings-
anything.
But then I couldn't do anything, and
Yeah.
from the waist down, and I began to stumble. I lost my balance, and anyway, last spring, my wife told me she was leaving me,
Oh.
and it wasn't all about the sex, but that was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And I had felt really, really, I guess, really inadequate about it.
Yeah, how were you guys handling the sex stuff like when you had ED?
Well, I became very, very. I studied, I read, I became pretty adept at using toys, at using my tongue, at using my lips, at using my fingers. I was generally able to bring her to orgasm,
That's good.
but I was unable to get an erection. I was unable to come to orgasm myself.
Did you try any treatment methods for it at all?
I tried Viagra. I tried Cialis. I tried what's the other one? Anyway,
Those are the two main.
Those are the two ones
I
I know
tried.
of.
They didn't work at all.
They didn't work out. Well, they worked a little bit, but not really.
Not enough to waste your time.
Not
with it.
enough to wait. Not enough to spend that much money on.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
expensive?
they're pretty
They're
expensive.
pretty expensive.
Does your insurance cover it at all?
No.
And they're something like $4 or $5 a pill, something
Yeah.
like that. They're pretty expensive.
That's insane that insurance doesn't cover it all. But yeah.
And anyway, but she left me, and I was really pretty much depressed.
Yeah.
And so I went to a counselor, a regular counselor, and for a while I went to see Angela
Angela.
at the
I know her.
Yeah.
at the recommendation of my neurologist, not neurologist. I lose words sometimes. A doctor.
Urologist?
Urologist.
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 Similar, that's why,
Similar.
because they were so
It-
close.
It was my urologist, and but I attended a session that she ran on ED, and it was mostly about penile implants, because I guess she is very big into penile implants.
You're a neurologist.
The neurologist,
Okay.
or urologist.
Urologist. See, I'm even
Urologist.
getting it
See,
wrong.
now we're
It's
just gonna
one
call
letter
them-
difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was this couple, and I think I came away with not the message that they were trying to give me,
Yeah.
because the wife was saying, well, his impotence was perfectly okay with her because he could always get the job done, but it was his self-esteem that was a problem.
Yeah.
And I thought about that, and I thought about the fact that with the nerve damage and the numbness, getting a penile implant for me would be kind of pointless.
Yeah.
Because you can't feel anything anyway.
Because I can't feel anything anyway. So I could pump it up, and I could be a living dildo for my partner.
But you
That's
wouldn't
an
be able to
interesting
enjoy
way
it
of
at all.
putting that.
I wouldn't be able to enjoy it at all. And why?
Yeah.
And so I thought
Living
about it.
dildo.
I thought about it a lot, and I'm pretty religious. I prayed about it a lot, and I attended a lot of. I read books, and Angela recommended some books that I read, and I attended some seminars run by Sex Positive St. Louis. And as I thought about it, I came to the conclusion that I have the body that I have.
Yeah.
I have the limitations that I have. Not being able to get an erection does not reduce the fact that I am a male, heterosexual, sexual human being. I still find women attractive. I still, and while having sex would not be the same thing, obviously, as having regular penetrative sex, or at least on my part, penetrative sex. But what was important to me, always has been important to me in sex, is intimacy, and not, the orgasm was never really the big part of it. It is the closeness, the intimacy, and I discovered more and more that there are an awful lot of women who are far more interested in intimacy and closeness and cuddling and somebody being there for them physically and emotionally, and not just the physical performance.
Well, quite a few women will say, he only wants sex. That's all he ever wants. So
yeah, they complain about it.
I could see quite a few women finding it a little bit refreshing.
Yeah, women like cuddles and
It doesn't
touch.
mean that we don't like sex. We do, but probably not to the same degree that some men do, depending on the person.
Yeah.
And I don't think that my self-esteem or my self-worth should be measured by the functionality of my penis. I just don't
I'd agree with that.
Yeah. And so, I'm sorry, I stopped coming to therapy.
Oh, it's okay.
You get what you need out of it.
You
Well, I
get
got-
what you need.
I love that you're apologizing to
I
her.
got what I needed it with.
You got what you
and
needed.
That's all you need.
I am perfectly at peace with my own sexuality now.
That's awesome.
I hope that one day to meet somebody who will be a partner for me. I tend to be pretty monogamous in my sexuality, so I am hoping to find a partner who. But I feel that I have to be open and upfront about who I am and what my limitations are, because what I don't want to do is get into a relationship with somebody and have her say, well, you deceived me, you led me on.
Right.
You
You want to be honest and upfront about what you're bringing to the table.
And so I've got to, it's a conversation that I have to have early on in every relationship. And
How do women respond to that?
So far, when I have been open and honest about it, every woman that I've ever talked to about it has said, that's no big deal.
Yeah.
So what?
They don't care.
They don't care.
Yeah.
I think that would be a man's biggest fear, right? How am I going to tell a woman this, and
Yeah.
how will she respond? It's so interesting that most women are like, okay,
Well,
thanks for letting me know.
I think that there's a subset of women like my wife who we're not divorced yet, so I guess she is still my wife. There's a subset of women who like my wife who believe that that penile sex is all there is.
Yeah. That's what they like.
That's what they like, and that's fine, But I guess that means we're not meant to be partners.
Yep.
But I think that what I have done. I have done a lot of studying. I think that in trying to deal with my own limitations, I have probably learned more about a woman's body and a woman's sexuality and how to deal with a woman's sexuality than most men ever bother to learn in their lifetimes.
Yeah.
And
Most don't read about sex, women. Yeah.
and
We just go at it. Yeah.
we just go at it.
Yep.
And
We're like pawing at them. Yeah,
That's
about
why
all
we
do.
keep saying, why do you only want sex?
Yeah.
Because there's more complexity to a female sexuality. It's not
Yeah.
that we don't want to have sex, but we want to be loved. We want to be treated like people.
You want to be treated like a person.
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
You have so many needs.
Oh, I know. Ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
So-
silly.
So you've learned a lot.
I've learned a lot, and I am a senior citizen. I'm 66 years old, so I don't know that I will ever really find the partner I'm looking for. And that's another thing that I have to be cognizant of, the possibility that I will spend my life alone. But I'm okay with that too.
Yeah. You can find a way to be happy with that,
I
too.
can find a way to be happy, because what I have to be is happy with myself, because if I can't be happy with myself, I can't make somebody else happy either.
Right. Yeah, if you're hating on yourself or just miserable, that is the least attractive thing to a partner.
Well, and it's hard because I think a lot of people try to date when they're in that really bad space, and
They're reaching out for other people,
yeah, and people don't fix depression. You
No.
know, not that I'm saying, well, it's hard, because actually being around people in social settings
Right.
can be helpful.
It
But
can.
what I mean is, you know, like you're saying, you have to be happy within yourself in order to be happy in a relationship.
I mean, when I found my wife was when I finally said, that's it. I'm just going to be happy with what I am and accept myself for that. And then all of a sudden I'm married. I'm like, okay, well, that worked out.
We were both kind of in that space.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've always known it about myself, but it's been my deep, dark secret all my life. And given my professions, people don't believe it, but my deepest, darkest secret has always been that I am painfully, painfully shy.
Yeah.
And I am especially scared to death of women. I'm scared to death to talk to women, to approach women.
You and about 90% of the guys out there. Yeah, me too.
A lot of men do struggle with that.
It is rough.
Well, I know the only way, my first two marriages, the only way I ended up getting married in the first place was that I was in a position, I was a rescuer. I found...
You were their savior somehow?
I was their savior, rescued them, but when they were, both of them, when they were beyond needing to be rescued, then they didn't need the rescuer anymore.
I see.
And in fact, began to resent the reminder that they had needed rescuing in the first place. But you know, my third wife I didn't rescue. I met her online. that was odd. But
Why was it odd?
well, I was on a dating site online, and I was really getting tired of the people that they were matching me up with. It was just, you know, they were boring.
Yeah.
And
A lot of those out there.
but I
It may
would,
just be that there are boring people sometimes.
Yeah. There are boring people out there. Yeah.
but I was signing on to, I was actually signing on to the website site when to cancel my membership. When somebody winked at me on the site, I looked, and I exchanged like 2 emails, and I said, "Can I call you?" Because she lived only like 20 miles away from me. I said, "Let's talk on the phone." So we both got off the website, talked on the phone. I said, and after the second phone call, I said, "Why waste time, phone calling? And why don't we just meet? I'll take you to lunch. We'll meet and see if we hit it off." And we did. And it might have been rushing it. We were married 3 months later.
Oh, that's
That is
fast.
quick.
So that was quick.
Did it feel like just that much of a connection? I mean, sometimes you feel close to somebody
Yeah,
quick.
it felt like that much of a connection. But
And was this after the ED had already...
well, I didn't know about the ED. This is when
This is the third...
this was the third
This
wife
is the one,
when
the wedding night.
the wedding night.
I see.
And I think the experience of the wedding night put up we were married for 10 years, but the experience of the wedding night, I think, put up a barrier that we were never able to really overcome. And also my basic shyness kicked in, and this is my fault. It is my fault that I'm very difficult for anybody to get to know. I don't make it easy to get to know me. And the fact that I tend to be so open and outgoing hides the fact that I am really hard to get to know.
That's interesting.
Because-
Like open and outgoing in like a public
In
situation.
a public situation.
But then in
Yes.
real life,
Right.
day to day, then it's hard to open up.
Right. I can talk to a group of people about anything. I'm an attorney with multiple master's degrees.
Yeah. So you're good in the public space.
In the public
Public
space,
speaking.
I can teach. I was an actor.
Acting probably helps a lot.
Oh, yeah. That's great with
And-
shyness. You just act through it. Like
Yeah.
on the inside,
Take
you're
on a
super
role.
anxious. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you've commented on, I have this voice
Yeah.
that
You have the very projecting voice.
Well, I remember one time in law school, I was competing in a moot court competition. And I was really excited because we had 3 real appellate court judges judging our moot court competition.
Interesting.
And afterwards, when they were commenting on us, one of the justices looked at me and said, "You will go far with that voice, that beautiful voice, you'll go very far in the law." And I said to myself, I think I am having the same feeling that a very intelligent woman might get when somebody says, ignores what she says and says, "You have a great body."
Yeah.
Yes.
With looks like
You'll go
that,
well
you'll
with
go well.
With that ass or something.
I wanted
funny.
I wanted to know what how my arguments
Yeah.
were. Whether I
You want to
made
be
sense.
appreciated for your
Right.
mind,
Yes,
not your
for my-
body.
yes.
It's like,
Or
I'm
your
more than
sound.
just a voice. I'm a person.
Yes.
Well, but it's funny because I could see that
'Cause women
because you
do have
speak.
to deal with that.
Well,
Yeah.
not I wasn't even talking about the women thing,
Yeah.
but I could see that in the law thing. A lot of it is your speaking and it's in your
Yeah.
performance. So
Yeah.
even if you said nothing intelligible, if you had a good a performance, you might still draw people along.
Yeah,
Well-
but he seems like he has something to say.
No,
some,
he does.
Some people have a
I'm
strong.
not saying that.
Some people have a strong voice, and then there's just nothing going on up there.
well,
True.
I've been a trial lawyer, a litigator for 25 years, and in the courtroom I have won 85% of the trials that I have done.
That's pretty good.
So
Yeah.
I must have something besides just a voice.
Yeah.
We would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, our justice system is really screwed up.
Oh.
Well, that's
It
that's
could
true.
be,
It
to be
is,
fair.
but
Yeah.
But that is a whole
That's a
nother
whole nother
podcast,
story.
and we don't
Yeah.
have time for that.
So we were talking about
ED and
you were
his
being shy
shy,
in
yeah.
public. Yeah. So
well, I'm shy in private.
in private,
I'm
that's
shy
interesting.
one-on-one.
So one-on-one, it's harder for you to
Yeah.
talk.
So-
see, I'm the opposite. Like in a small environment like this, like there's just the 3 of us. I'm great. Give me in front of a group of 30 people. Nope.
For me, it depends on the rules. If I know the rules of the situation, then I can follow the rules and do well. But
Or
I
if
don't
you're on
know,
stage.
well, that's the stage has rules.
Yeah.
I don't know if you mentioned you did acting. There's
Yes.
some rules, so
Yeah.
you can't break the fourth wall. Always if you can, look in people's eyes,
Sure.
smile a lot, and you can show your vulnerability. That's actually a good strategy. So I know certain rules, and if I know the rules, then I can do well. But if I don't, then I am scared as anything, and I'm
like a
I'm not
church
sure where to
mouse.
put my hands.
Well, I guess where I'm most afraid is in one-on-one situations with women, dating situations.
Like intimate
Yeah,
situations.
there aren't easy rules there, are there?
There aren't easy rules.
Actually, there are. I
Josh has some rules.
there are.
Well,
Like a lot of them I learned from her.
That's
well,
true.
I find when I look back, now at my age, I look back and think about my dating history over my life, and I had, in order to get to hide my shyness, when I meet a woman, I have certain scripts that I follow. I have certain stories, certain things that I know in the past have charmed women, so I will say and do the things that I know have worked in the past.
Sure.
But and they do work.
Yeah.
They do work.
They like the same jokes, the same like stories.
Yeah, and
They like it when you compliment them.
they like it when I compliment them. They like it.
They like it when you ask about them. Like, what do you think?
There are some rules to the
Yeah.
dating
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, I learned that early on. Is like women love it when you ask questions about them.
And I find it that I've always found that women in my life it's always worked when I sing to them.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So that's a rule. Sing them a song.
It's more of that voice right
Yes,
there.
it's more of the voice,
Well, but it's also a very vulnerable thing to
Yes.
sing for somebody.
and I write songs for them, so I make up songs about them. And
oh yeah, women love a romantic.
Well,
Yeah.
in order to do that, you'd have to develop some understanding about them as a person.
yeah. Oh, it's I'm very intuitive about reading other people.
Yeah.
You can't be a successful trial lawyer without being able to read people. And actually, I think I've probably said enough about myself that anybody who knows me will recognize who I am.
That's fine. We don't have to talk about trial
We don't
lawyer.
have to. I was thinking, I'd probably be a really good trial lawyer because I can really read people.
And you're loud.
And I'm loud. And
Yeah.
I got a very booming voice.
But you also have to be able to turn empathy on and off, because if you are dealing with a hostile witness, you can't feel sorry for them, even if they're even if they're a very sympathetic person.
If they're on the opposition.
If they're on the opposite
it's not
side,
your job
it's-
to.
yeah.
be
Now that would be
empathetic.
where I would fail then.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're too empathetic. You're
I
too.
care too
Oh,
much.
you're too good of a person, Angela.
Ah.
So you have issues with being comfortable with one-on-one intimate situations.
Yes.
So how did the ED affect that? Did it change that for the worse?
Well, yeah, it made it. At first, it made it for the worst because it was. What? I guess the thought that ran through my mind at first was, what do I have to offer a woman other than bullshit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can bullshit with the best of them, but I can say things. What is there about me? So I realized that if I am ever going to have an intimate relationship again, I have to put me out there and not the role that I always project.
So you feel like a lot of times you're kind of projecting a character.
I am always projecting a character.
Yeah. Have you gotten better about being more vulnerable and taking off that character?
I have. I have been making one of the reasons I agreed to do this podcast is because I have been making it a point to. I find that when I am able to verbalize to other people things that I have always been ashamed of or hidden inside, when I'm able to
Be brutally honest. Yeah.
about myself, about my shortcomings, about it is there is, I don't know whether you familiar with an old science fiction book called Dune.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, well,
Great book.
there's a line that is repeated over and over in Dune that says, fear is a mind killer. You face your fear, you let it pass over you, through you, and then when it's passed, you look at where it's gone, and there's nothing. And I find that when I
unless there's a tiger there behind
unless
the
there's
fear.
a tiger,
There's some exceptions.
Some exceptions to the rule, but who's
most
facing
fear.
a tire every day?
Yeah.
but
Go on.
The internal emotional fears that I have, I find that when I express them, when I acknowledge them and admit them, and say, not only do I look and I'm no longer afraid of them, it's that people don't look at me like I have two heads.
Is that what you worried about before?
Oh yeah, I worried. I always worried about looking silly, looking ridiculous.
You didn't want to seem weird or awkward
Yeah.
to them. Yeah.
Because
You seem like a pretty normal guy to me.
you don't know me very well.
No, I don't.
No, but what you're talking about makes sense because a lot of how people really connect is in some of those things that they're ashamed of about
Yeah.
themselves, is being able to really put themselves out there and feel loved and connected to others. Like that's with my infidelity stuff. You know, I wrote my book this last year on infidelity, and one of the biggest connecting things for couples after they come back from an infidelity is their ability to share the things they're scared the most about to each other. And what's crazy or wild to me is that by doing that, they have a much deeper intimacy and they get more sexy with each other as a result. Because there's nothing sexier than honest vulnerability.
Yeah.
Well, now infidelity is something I've never had to cope with.
That's
Well,
good.
that's good. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Well, it's an ironic thing because my last wife, one of the things that I found most attractive about her when we talked about. Before we got married, we talked about our beliefs and our religious faith, and because after 2 failed marriages, I had terrible fear of abandonment because in both cases they left me,
Yeah.
and both of my first 2 wives were unfaithful and left me, and I was terribly afraid of abandonment, but in our religion, my third wife told me before we got married that there's only one legitimate grounds for divorce according to the Bible, and that is infidelity. I said, she doesn't have to worry about I will never be unfaithful. Well, it turned out that when she decided she wanted to leave me, I guess her one grounds for divorce ceased to be the only legitimate reason for divorce.
People will set really high standards all over the place, but reality kicks in.
Yeah.
Reality is marriage is tough too. I mean, it's very complicated for anybody involved. Even we've had our ups and downs, but we've always had to work through them.
What?
What? We don't have a perfect marriage.
We have a perfect marriage. Totally. Never
No,
had.
I mean,
Does anybody have a perfect
No,
marriage?
No.
not at all.
no, not at all.
No.
This from your marriage therapist.
Yeah.
No, it's hard as
No,
hell.
no marriage is perfect by definition.
And actually, sometimes for therapists, because people kind of hold you to a higher standard, you almost hold yourself to a higher standard. And so you're like, oh, what do I do when we're struggling? And it's like, just be a human and work on it like everybody else. But
And I think because she's a therapist, because she knows all this stuff about infidelity and she teaches about it, people think, oh, she has a perfect marriage.
no.
Couldn't be further from the truth.
No, and that doesn't mean we hate each other, by the way. It just
Oh,
means
no.
we work at it
No,
consciously.
I love her
I
so
love
much.
you to death.
But
But we've
doesn't
had
mean
our
we've
times.
not still had our bad months or bad years. And we've been to marriage counseling. It saved our marriage, honestly.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the point. So, I
Well-
mean, it sounds like in your relationship, you guys work through some things, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it doesn't make anybody,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I know my last wife and I did go to marriage counseling for a long time, but it always turned into what's wrong with him.
Yeah.
So, have you gotten better at being more vulnerable than you think? Putting yourself out there?
I think I have. I socialize a lot more now, but it's
putting yourself out there, though.
I'm putting myself out there, and but I am trying to learn and explore all of the different, as many different avenues of sexuality as I can.
Yeah.
Because as you could probably tell from my educational background, I don't trust experts usually, and so when something,
You don't trust any experts.
So when something becomes a problem, I usually go back to school and get a master's degree in it. So I become an
He's
expert.
just too smart.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So
He's like, because you probably learn a topic better than even some experts do. I can imagine.
It's true, though. Really, some experts, they're in their field so long, and they don't really study a lot of the newer stuff. So
when I was diagnosed with diabetes,
I've met some.
Sorry,
When I was diagnosed with diabetes, I went back to school, and they told me all sorts of things about what I could and couldn't do and what would happen to me. I went back to school and spent a year studying anatomy and physiology to find out exactly what was going on in my body, and studied nutrition and studied because
Sounds like you're a lifelong learner.
I'm a lifelong learner.
That's awesome. It's a good thing.
And now, who knows? Maybe I'll end up being a sex therapist.
Who knows?
You may. Well, and I want to put it out there. An expert is somebody who keeps researching, keeps learning, learning from their failures. I agree that
because there's always new ways of looking at things.
I think sometimes if
research.
an expert stops doing that, that's what makes them lose that status for me is, like you just need to know as much as you can about your field constantly because things are changing. And that's kind of the nature of research, that it's always growing and expanding.
Some people get the mindset of, I know something now and I can never change my way of thinking. And that's not very good.
That's not being an expert. No. And that might make you lifelong expert just in life.
Because you're always wanting to learn new things. Yeah.
One of the things I found from socializing and investigating all sorts of different people's approach to sexuality, I've become friends with gay people and transsexuals, and
and you never did before in your life.
Well, I did, but not in the sense of putting myself out there and letting them know me. It was
like deeper friendship.
Deeper friendship.
I see.
And I guess I have really, really come to adopt the attitude of Pope Francis about alternative sexuality. When asked about gay people, he said, "Who am I to judge?"
Yeah.
And so
Pope Frank.
Yeah, Pope Frank.
He's a good guy.
He's one that a lot of people like.
Yeah.
So everybody, there are probably as many different definitions of sexuality as there are people who are sexual. And I guess I do sometimes judge, though. I have to admit.
Sure, everybody does.
Well, I was in a discussion group it was last night. I was talking with some people, and there was this guy there who was complaining about women, and he was saying that when he goes to a singles bar and none of the women will ever respond to him. They're just all, and he thinks they're all lesbians there to make fun of him.
Whoa.
No. It might be the aura you're putting out that makes people not want to talk
maybe
to
a little
you.
bit of that aggression there, dude.
And
You're calling women lesbians and you're wondering why they're not getting into you.
Well, my comment to him was, if you're in a singles bar that's noted for a place to hook up with people, and you're not having any success, then it might just be, it's not a statement about the women, it might be a statement about you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it
Might be a you problem.
It might be that they're just not into you.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're kind of putting out a good point, though, that like nobody is perfectly non-judgmental. We can try to be curious and understanding, but you're still going to have your own opinions. While I keep learning and growing, I still have opinions about what I think is okay or not okay for myself. But that's the difference, is that like, one thing I guess I've always had challenges, like, can people just have their opinions, but also let other people have opinions, and there be this kind of respect for those differences, not this sense of, okay, well, I believe this, so now you need to believe this.
Well,
and so that to me is more of that kind of acceptance, is allowing people to have differences around you and still being comfortable in your own sense of self.
Well, I guess I guess we're way off the topic.
I know, I totally went somewhere else.
Oh, no, we're still talking about relationships and sex.
And vulnerability.
That's okay.
But I guess it's
an interesting topic.
The one degree that I will not give up being judgmental is that in all the years I was a defense attorney, I would not defend people who were child molesters.
No.
I can understand that.
I don't think that's being judgmental, though.
And I am very judgmental about rapists.
Principled. Yeah.
I do.
We agree.
We think that's an okay.
I don't think that's being judgmental. That's more like that's protecting kids and people from being raped. I think.
Well,
yeah.
I once I was court ordered once many years ago to represent a man who was charged with molesting his stepdaughter, and it was not my choice. And I had to represent him, and he insisted that he wanted to go before the court and request visitation with his son. He had a small son. And I said, they're not going to give you visitation with your son. It is a waste of time. But he insisted, because his argument was, I'm perfectly safe around my son. I'm not gay. I only molest little girls.
Oh, God.
Oh, that is rough.
Well,
yeah, you can judge him all you want. I'm okay with that.
The court ruled the way I thought they would rule.
Yeah.
You're not getting around your little boy either.
And they're right. They're there to protect the children.
Yeah,
it's not about him.
Yeah, but...
Anyway, enough about child molesters.
We're going to have to go off that topic, but it is important.
Yeah, so but there are some... Well, I have had people argue that... there are people who argue that this is just a sexual preference, just like any other. But whenever a sexual preference involves imposing your will on somebody else against their will, or who is defenseless, then
it's all about consent.
It's all about
adults
consent.
And no coercion,
non-exploitation,
no force, no exploitation. That's it.
No.
Other than that, it's not a preference. No, it's a problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that too.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get many people arguing with you on that one.
Yeah. Well, I try to be. I try to be agreeable about.
I wouldn't be agreeable about that ever. When it comes to that topic,
most people I get along with, and most people I don't pass judgment on.
Sure, that's good.
I'm learning some fascinating things.
Yeah. What are you learning about sex lately?
Well, I had somebody teach me how to do dry and wet cupping.
What is cupping?
What's cupping? I always learn something new on the show.
Well, it is, dry cupping is where they take a glass jar.
Oh, I know.
And heat it and put it on a person's back, and it sucks
It creates a vacuum.
Like
and sucks it in there, yeah.
Huh.
And I'm not sure, and wet cupping is when they take a blade and slice before they put the cup on, so blood comes in.
Oh no!
Why would they want? Well, I guess people like pain stuff.
Yeah.
Some people are interested in sex and pain. Okay.
So I
that threw me off. No cutting.
I saw it done. I would not want to do it. I wouldn't want it done to me.
Mm-hmm.
But
maybe the dry, but good Lord.
But it was consensual, and both people seemed to enjoy it.
They liked it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that is an interesting.
Interesting. So just going to different venues, I've gotten to witness different things and talk to people about their about their relationships, and I'm just learning. It's they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I'm old, and I am.
And
you're learning some new tricks.
I'm learning a lot of new tricks, and especially, I have to say that I am especially. I have made friends with several lesbians, and the reason, and I've been very open about my self-interest in making friends with lesbians, and I talk to them about their sexuality because lesbians are people who have who seem to have wonderful, fulfilling, intimate sex lives without the use of an erect penis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They seem to be.
You probably could learn a lot from a few lesbians, couldn't you?
So I am learning a lot from a few lesbians.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to, mention maybe just the dry cupping in terms of like neuropathy and nerve pain. And pain, a lot of time what I've noticed when I have clients who experience some level of pain or chronic pain is that the introduction of a consensual pain during sexuality can actually be a very pleasurable thing. And I believe part of this is that when you're having chronic pain, your body and those nerve endings are firing this one painful way again and again and again. And so when you start to introduce new forms of pain or sensation,
Those pathways are used.
Nerve used in a different way. And so suddenly it basically draws attention away from that pain center that they're constantly struggling with and into other areas. And so quite a few of my pain patients will like things like spankings, will like things like hard scratching, or I'm just saying, like all the different things, things like cupping, I'm assuming has some, like, maybe it feels like a really strong hickey,
which is a little bit painful.
Assumption is, which is a little bit painful. But like if you kind of need a space to get out of the chronic pain center, then it's also a way to divert attention. That's what I've heard from many of my clients.
I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and not that everybody's going to be as interested in pain during sex, but it is something for people to consider.
And some may not be interested in it for that same reason. They may
and
not
some people
have
like it for a completely
pain.
different reason, actually. They talk about a subspace they go to where the pain is so intense, they almost go into this like other world, and it's exciting and deeply erotic.
Because your body releases endorphins as a response to pain, which is your body's morphine.
Exactly.
So you're getting high.
In your own natural way.
And sex does it too.
Does it too.
So does exercise exciting adventures and,
running. Yeah, the runner's high.
Runner's high, yeah.
Well, I find I still, even though my legs and feet are in constant pain, I still walk 5 to 7 miles a day.
Does it hurt more or less during the walking? Or?
Less.
That's good.
As I get going, I start out by taking my pain medication before I start walking.
Yeah.
But as I walk, I guess the endorphins get going. The pain diminishes, and
that's good.
Because of the balance problems, and I am falling more. And I'm starting to get neuropathy in my fingers and hands, which just the tingling. But I believe that if I keep on walking and if I keep on exercising, I will stay out of a wheelchair.
Yeah,
that's good. I do not want to end up crippled.
Yeah, you want to stay as mobile as you can.
No.
And they say with diabetes, the more exercise you do, the better outcome you're going to have.
Yeah. Well, I told my doctor when I was diagnosed with diabetes, I said, this is not a disease. It's your body's way of telling you have to be an athlete.
Yeah.
Well,
you got to get out there and move.
I could agree with that. Honestly, we had an accident at some point in our relationship that caused some chronic pain for us. And I've noticed that the best treatment on my side is lots of exercise.
Yeah, the last 2 years, I exercise every day over the last 2 years, and it's really made me a lot more mobile and ability to use despite all my back pain.
Well, it seems counterintuitive because when you're feeling pain, the last thing you want to do is move. You want to curl up in the ball and try to avoid the pain, but there's an atrophy of the muscles that happens when you're
Which
not
makes it
using
worse.
them, which can make it
Give
worse.
you more balance problems because you can't hold
Yeah.
yourself up as easily.
So
Different
yeah,
things,
I mean, movement still is the better treatment for pain than
yeah, yoga for me. That's
just
what I
laying
do.
around and doing
walking.
nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I find on some days I walk with a cane, not because I need it all the time, but because if I feel as though I might stumble, I carry the cane to keep me from falling down.
You can brace yourself on
To
it.
brace
a little bit.
myself in case I stumble.
Well, that's good.
That's good.
Yeah,
But
if you have balance problems, you should definitely keep that around.
You know, I feel like the lesbian thing's a PSA. If you're having any erection problems, then you should meet lesbians.
Befriend lesbians.
Befriend lesbians so you can
There
learn
you
to be
go.
a better level.
So-
lever.
So I have a question. So you had the ED, the pop up, and then after that, have you been able to get any orgasms at all, or have you found ways to do that?
I have. I've been able to. I've been able to achieve ejaculation.
Yeah.
It's very mild, very mild, not
It
terrible.
doesn't feel the same.
Doesn't feel the same. No,
Yeah.
But I am. But with self stimulation, I can. It's a lot of work. I'm not even sure I would call it masturbation because it's too much.
It's really
work.
in depth.
Very rigorous.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I decide, and most of the time it's not worth the effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's too much work for how much outcome you get.
right.
Yeah.
But
Maybe the better question is, are you still experiencing pleasure?
I still experience pleasure. It's like when you hear stories about when a person goes blind, their hearing and touch become more. So I do experience intense pleasure, and some places that I am never. I will, when I experience it, I will never admit to the person that I'm receiving it from. So I find
You won't tell them that it's pleasurable?
oh no, because for example, one of my favorite things in the world right now is to get a haircut.
Oh.
So
Why is that?
because when somebody shampoo, I don't have much hair, but when somebody shampoos my hair and scratches my head,
It's like a massage, yeah?
and like a massage of the head, that is intensely pleasurable
It is.
for me.
Yeah.
You
got to wash my hair more, Angela.
and I find the touching,
Being touched, yeah.
being touched,
Yeah.
I guess the pleasure I get from touching with the parts of my body that still are working properly is I find it's much more intense than it ever was before. So I can I know my wife always found it absurd, but I would enjoy just cuddling and kissing and just and stroking with my hands and things, because I find that extremely pleasurable.
I think most people do,
Super
yeah. That's a
erotic,
good,
too.
yeah. I'm a fan of cuddling. I'm not ashamed of that at all, yeah.
But I find it much more erotic. It's much more, to me, it's much closer to orgasmic than it was when I was still.
You get more pleasure out of it now.
Because my sexuality is focused on that. And I have to say, the greatest pleasure I ever experienced, and is when I am with a woman, and I am able to, however it's done, when I am able to bring a woman to orgasm, when, as I feel her body begin to vibrate and quiver, and
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
it is almost as though it's almost like I have a psychic link, and it's almost though I can experience it through her. And so
So it makes you want to be very generous.
it makes me want to be very
But
generous.
get lost in it too.
Yeah.
I do.
Like you're getting something out of it too.
I'm getting a great deal out of it.
Yeah.
And but I was always like that even before I had experienced ED. It is I remember there were times in my life when I was younger when a woman would, I think women frequently fake orgasms.
They do.
And I don't know why, but when a woman,
They just get tired. They're like, let's finish it up.
But when a woman would fake an orgasm, I would just say, it's okay. You don't have to fake it.
Yeah.
Just because I've always gotten an intense pleasure from a woman's orgasm, and I don't know. I don't see. I do not understand. I really don't understand men who are so focused on their own orgasm that they don't care or worry about, because to me, always, all my life, the woman's orgasm is more important to me than my own. It is more fun. Even thinking about it, I find it very erotic.
Yeah.
So
You're getting lost in it.
You're getting
it's
lost
very
in it, yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good
I can
thing.
understand that, especially working with many couples where men haven't experienced that from their wives. They definitely experience the loss if they aren't able to give their wives that. So I can definitely understand why that's so erotic, and men who do express that same thing, they just, it's something special. It kind of reminds me of the term compersion, actually. Compersion, where you're kind of experieing
You
joy
get pleasure
from somebody else's
pleasure.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Schadenfreude, but not.
But in a good way.
about their agony.
Not for agony.
well, Schadenfreude literally means shudder pleasure, and so it really literally is Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
But shudder pleasure.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's awesome.
But I do think that when I think about what I do have to offer and the things that I do, I think there is probably a woman out there who would appreciate me.
Yeah. That's
I
awesome.
think so too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of women, especially as you get into your senior years, 50s and 60s, they don't want to be jumping all over the place,
Wow.
They'd rather just some cuddling. Like,
Well,
that's
they
the reality.
still want to be sexual, but the point is
no.
you can be sexual in a variety of ways.
I know.
with your
And
whole
the
body.
reality is, yeah.
But
You get a lot of, especially if you can get a lot of pleasure out of giving pleasure, I think a lot of women can connect with that idea. Like in general, people are like, "Oh, you just want to make me feel good? Yeah, I can do that."
Yeah. Wait, is it really going to be all about me? Okay, I think I can make it. But it won't, because you get something out of it too.
Yeah, the touch and sense of connection. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, so would there be any kind of final thing you would say if a guy was struggling with the same thing? Because I get a lot of guys who worry, about erectile dysfunction.
Yeah, a lot of men get ED as they get into
So
their later
what
years.
message would you send them home with? If you're ever having EDD, or not EDD, ED.
Yeah. Did going to counseling help come to accept it for what it is?
Well, I've been in counseling several times in my life, and I have been. I don't know whether I don't know whether Angela experienced me like this, but I have been told several times by counselors that when I go to counseling, I start talking, I root out a problem, but once I recognize and acknowledge that something is a problem, I then solve it. I
Yeah.
then deal with it.
Sometimes you just need to know what
Yeah.
the problem is.
So I guess I am. Well, I don't remember who said it, but I am not. I am not someone who will wallow in his own shit.
No.
Yeah.
You're an investigator. You're
I'm an
you're a lawyer.
investigator.
You want to find out what's wrong
Yeah.
and solve
Well, my first master's degree was in philosophy,
it. Oh,
and I'm above all else. I'm a
you're a
philosopher.
philosopher.
Well, and what I remember is that you're the kind of person that you just need a direction and then you take it on yourself. And that is a perfectly fine way of solving your problems, you know, and whether it's reading and learning as much as you can about sex and sexuality, I think you hit your milestone regardless of how it was done.
Well, I am happy with where I am.
That's good.
So
I'm proud to hear that.
It's good to have find happiness.
Yeah. And I will be happier if I meet
A partner
a partner, but
that you can share your happiness
that I
with.
can share my happiness with. But I have the happiness to share, and I'm not looking for somebody to make me happy. I'm
Right.
looking for somebody to share my happiness with. And
Right.
That's the
Mm-hmm.
big
You can
difference.
still be happy, but if somebody wants to enjoy the happiness with you,
Mm-hmm.
they're more than welcome to join you. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I think that's a good point to end it.
I think
We're right at an hour.
So
So you had a little bit of a plug to put in before we go?
I did. So I have two things. One, my book, Helping Couples Overcome Infidelity, a Therapist Manual, is out, and it's available at Amazon, so check that out. I'm doing trainings around St. Louis on it. And then one training that's coming up with AAMFT is called Alternative Lifestyles 102. It's an advanced class I'm offering on polyamorous and kink relationships and how to work with those in therapy.
Yeah.
So you can check that out on the aamft.org. And if, of
Website.
course, you need, that's the website. And, of course, if you need therapy from me, it's www.therapistinstlouis.com.
Yeah. And thank you for joining us today. It's been really good.
Thank
Yeah.
you for having me.
Really
you,
great
Richard.
conversation. This has been the About Sex podcast. We've been talking with Richard. Be sure to add us on Facebook, review us on iTunes, or send your questions to aboutsexpodcast@gmail.com. I'm Joshua Skirtu.
And I'm Angela Skirtu.
Stay
Stay kinky, St. Louis.
Louis.